All right, so we are live and we are ready to go. My name is Jared Sparr, and I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me today. This is the webinar on Are the credit card processing companies ripping you off? And this seems to be a popular topic lately, so we're going to get into it just a little bit. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. We do have several people joining us in the webinar. I do have everybody on mute so that way we can get a clean recording because we are recording it for later use and watch and viewing pleasurabilities. And also wanted to say that if you have questions, please put those in the chat box and we will get to those at the end to try and make sure that we keep you guys on time and get you out on time. So with that, let's get started. Oh, maybe we won't get started. Let's see here. There we go. Sorry about that. We got stuck. All right. So before we do get started into the meat potatoes here, let me indulge you really quick and tell you kind of the why I do what I do. I'm going to give you my short signature story. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. At one point in time, I owned 7 businesses and actually had over 100 employees that worked for me. And I thought I was being very smart in that I consolidated all of my businesses under one tax ID to save money. And in doing that, I saved a ton of money on accounting, a ton of money on like taxes and reporting, a ton of money of insurance and payroll. So it actually did, work in my favor to that point. But about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. As you can imagine, I had to take a lot of time off of work. And while I was gone, my employees at one of my businesses managed to embezzle a little over $600,000. And because I had all the businesses under one tax ID, you can imagine that business folded. It was like a domino effect because when that business closed, I had bills due from that business that I still had to pay. I couldn't just write them off. And the other businesses kind of struggled to keep up. And then I sold one business to kind of pay for the bills, the one that closed, and it still struggled. And like I said, a domino effect happened. And eventually I did lose everything. I lost all the businesses. And in that experience, I have to say it was one of the most educational experiences of my life because seeing what I saw happen, I would change, going back, I would definitely change how I did things, but I never want to see what happened to me happen to anybody else again. And that's kind of why I do what I do. So my kind of goal is to educate business owners on how they can create more income for themselves and also protect themselves. All right, so getting into the meat and potatoes, credit card processing. The pricing is very, very confusing, and I'm going to try and make it easy for you to understand. Before 2005, there was 3 price points. There was qualified, mid-qualified, and non-qualified. After 2005, Visa and MasterCard decided to make some changes, and they implemented literally 600 new price points. So if you ask someone, hey, what's your rate? There's no straight answer because there's 600 different price points now. And the best way to explain it is the card issuer, so whoever's name is on that credit card, whether it's Capital One or Advanta or Chase or etc., whoever issues that card is the one who determines what that price point is. So that might help you understand a little bit of why the prices are what they are, and kind of also understand like why Capital One gives 1% cash back because it's coming out of your pocket as the merchant. So that's the elusive part of it. And the one thing that's good is there are ways to compare apples to apples, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But really quickly, I want to show you a formula on how you can actually not just like compare apples to apples, but compare gross averages. And this will give you pretty much within the 90th percentile a good idea of if you're inside and getting a good rate for your type of business. So the formula is take your total fees. So if you're processing, say, $35,000 a month, take what your total fees are, write them down. Take what your total, I'm sorry, your fees. Your fees is actually what the credit card processor is charging you. So if that's say, $800, put that in there, and then your total volume, which is 35,000. So it's total fees divided by total volume, and what you'll come up with is a number that looks like the one on the screen, 0.00237, and that can be converted to a percentage by taking out the 2 zeros, which converts to 0.237. So that gives you a pretty good idea of where you're at right now. That's a gross average. It includes all your different fees. So, if someone's trying to play the shell game and give you a super low rate, but then they overcharge you somewhere else, this takes everything into account. To give you an idea of what normal businesses are paying and, kind of in our true economy right now, retail is usually 1.60. CNP, which stands for card not present, which would be, say, for example, a cleaning company or a florist where they never see the credit card is roughly 2.0, or like web-based sales is 2.50. What I didn't put in there is restaurants, and restaurants can really vary depending on where they're located. I've noticed them as low as say 1.75 and as high as 2.05. So again, it depends. There's some variability there, but that gives you a really quick idea of exactly where you stand and if you're getting the best prices, and kind of gives you, some reason to make changes if you feel you need to. So, with that, how can you save 30% without switching providers? The first tip is ask yourself, when was the last time your credit card terminal was downloaded? And most times the last time it was downloaded was the last time that sales agent came into your office and reprogrammed it when they first set you up. And if that was a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, it makes a huge difference. And the reason why, remember I talked about the card issuers. The card issuers, for security reasons, determine what information is necessary for you to enter into that credit card terminal for you to get the best rates. So some of them require you to put in that 3 digits off the back. Some require a zip code. Some require a tax amount. Some require an invoice number, and so on and so on. There's lots of requirements, and they're not consistent because they depend on which card issuers are putting them on there. If your machine hasn't been downloaded in the past, say, year to 18 months, chances are you're paying too much because those requirements by the card issuers change every 6 to 12 months. So if you have been downloaded in over a year, likely you're paying too much, and usually too much is by 30% or more. So how can you fix that problem? Well, call your credit card processor, tell them you just want the most recent download. Usually it takes them about 24 to 48 hours to write that download for your terminal. They give you a phone call and they can walk you through it. It's typically pretty quickly and pretty easily done. It takes maybe as little as 10 minutes, as much as 45 minutes, and you just punch some buttons and they can instruct you how. So it's really not that hard. With the phone call and everything, maybe 45 minutes to an hour's worth of work on your end. But if you're saving 30%, which could mean, say, $200 a month, it's well worth your time. All right. So tip number two, and look on the terminal on the screen and look at how old this thing is. How old is your credit card terminal? If it's old like the one on the screen, it's time to upgrade. And the reason why, credit card terminals are much like computers. They have a certain amount of RAM and a certain amount of memory for processing. And the programs, the newest ones that give you the cheapest rates, are obviously more robust. They take up more RAM and they take up more memory. With that said, if you've got an older credit card terminal, even though it might be PCI compliant, it doesn't have the capability of running the new programs, which means that you cannot load the program and you're not getting the lowest rates. So that being said, you want to upgrade your terminal if it's an older terminal. How do you do that? Well, your credit card processor will be happy to sell you one for several hundred, anywhere from $300 to say $900. But my suggestion is you go on to eBay. You can get a credit card terminal like a Hypercom T7 Plus. Tell your processor you got a new terminal, tell them what kind it is. They can write a program for it, just like we talked in the previous slide, and they can download it for you. So it's a great way for you to get the lower rates without spending a ton of money. Those terminals usually run $100 on eBay, so they're not that expensive, and you don't have to buy a terminal from your provider. Let's see here. Another thing that I just want to throw in really quickly is that in regards to PCI compliance, many terminals now are not supported, meaning that, like the one on the screen, it's so old that they'll let you still process with it, but if you have something break, they won't fix it for you. They won't support you when you call. So your best bet is to upgrade now so you're not in that situation where you're kind of dead in the water. And if you email me, my email is on the bottom there. Tell me what kind of terminal you have. I'll respond and tell you if it's not supported. Okay, tip number three, is your staff trained? And this one is so, so important. I've got a heating, cooling, air conditioning company that I've been working with for years and years and years. Um, we saved him, I think, $140 a month when we started working with him. And he actually is a processing customer of mine as well. I monitor my customer statements, and I noticed that one month his pricing went up. And I said, that's unusual. The next month it went up again. I said, okay, now it's time to take a closer look. Well, after 3 months, it was consistently higher. And obviously, 3 points make a straight line. So now we knew we had something very consistent. We had to make some changes or figure out what was going on. Well, I made some phone calls and talked to him and found out that he had a new employee working for him, a new office girl. And whenever the guys called in from the field to run the transactions, she was the new person, the new point for them to call into. I got on the phone with her, asked her a few questions, and found out she wasn't entering any information. She was just basically in a rush. So she wasn't entering any zip codes, any street addresses, any CVV numbers, and so on and so forth that were required in our first tip. Um, so as a result, they were paying 30% more than they needed to, and with that one phone call, we saved him $70. Basically, I went into there and explained it to that salesperson, did a training all over again, exactly what she needs to do. So if you've got a good sales rep, when you first start working with that sales rep, they'll sit down with your staff and train them, and they'll actually monitor your account to keep an eye on what's going on. Um, if Inside of my tips and tricks part that I'll talk about a little bit later, I'm going to show you in more detail exactly what that means and what you can do to save more money using that technique. All right, so step number 4. What is your process? This is really, really important. Um, I started doing some consulting work and I actually work with a pest exterminator down in Ohio. And this guy was huge. He was a franchise, but he had like 30 some trucks. I mean, huge, huge business. They had been with their bank ever since they signed up for, open their doors. They've been with processing credit cards with their bank. And they routinely get competitive quotes. And the first thing they do is go back to their bank and they shop it. So the bank lowers their rates to match the competitive quote, right? And the problem is their bank literally doesn't have a sales rep that's assigned to their account. So even though they're getting fantastically low rates, they were still way, way, way overpaying. And let me explain the difference in how their process worked. So their process, when I first met them, they had their 17 or so trucks out on the road. And each driver, when they get completed with the job, would get the credit card information, write it down, call the Visa, get a voice authorization. So they made sure that that transaction was paid for before they left, and then they would turn in their paperwork at the end of the day. An office person the following day, after they got everybody dispatched, would manually enter all the information and force it through the credit card machine with those pre authorizations. Now, just to give you an idea, every time you call Visa for a voice authorization, they charge you $1.75. My advice to them was, instead of having the staff, the guys in the field, call Visa, have them call the office girl. Real simple change. And so calling Visa directly, they called in the office. The office girl entered the data directly in the credit card terminal and did a live transaction. And they knew instantly whether it was a good card or was declined. That change for 800 transactions times $1.75 saved them roughly $1,200 to $1,300 a month. And because they weren't doing the transaction the following day, they were doing it the same day, it sped up their cash flow by 24 hours. No difference in pricing, $1,200 to $1,300 a month in savings. So how you process credit cards can be more important than the pricing that you're getting. Let's see if I'm missing anything here. If you've got repeat customers, there's lots of different ways that you can automatically bill your customers. There's new changes in rules with Visa, MasterCard that you can charge convenience fees. So your process is extremely important. And if you work with your sales agent or have a good sales agent, they'll work with you to explain new processes that are available for you. All right, tip number 5, using other type of equipment. And again, this could be something that would apply to that pest exterminator. Instead of having him call into, or his staff call into the office to run the transactions, they can run them on their mobile phone. Really cool new option right now. And if you're running a transaction by swiping a card versus calling that in, that's a 30% savings. But I do want to make sure that you get the right fit for your company and the way you do business. If you're just a single person out there, some of these off the shelf, so to speak, providers like Square or Intuit would be a good fit for you. However, if you have multiple vehicles on the road, like my pest exterminator example, that's not a good fit. And the reason why I say that is, like Intuit, for example, every swiper that you have has its own deposit. If you have 17 guys on the road, you have 17 different accounts set up and 17 different deposits going in your bank each night. Doing your bank rec at the end of the month, 17 times 30 days is a nightmare, much less if you have to track down a transaction. You don't even know which account it went through. There's ways that you can consolidate that with a traditional processor. The second part is security. Think about this. That credit card reader is on your employee's phone, most likely on their smartphone, which means that they own your data. So they actually own everything that gets swiped through their phone because their phone is theirs, right? And if they were to stop working for you, they still own your data. Or if they're to be dishonest and go home and do a refund off of your account into their own debit account or their wife's or someone else's, that can be very easily done. So it's an easy way for them to steal money from you. Where with traditional providers, there's security features that are added in where, say, for example, you can set up usernames and passwords for each employee, and you can actually put in user preferences so they can only do sales. They can't do refunds, they can't do voids, they can't do reporting or batches. And that protects you as the business owner. So, a lot of stuff to think about in the way that you process and the equipment you use. And again, if you have a good sales agent, that sales agent keeps an eye on how your business is running. Excuse me again. They keep an eye on how your business is running and they make sure that you're using the best process for your business. Okay, so I've given you a ton of information and you've got some different steps that you can take now. The first step I do suggest you take is go to my website. It's howtoimproveprofits.biz. And there you can sign up for a free ebook. With that ebook, all the information I just give you, I give you in a lot more detail, like the processes, like which terminals and so forth and so on. So now you can apply that to your business and go beyond just the tips, but know the details. So that's a free option for you. Go to the website, howtoimproveprofits.biz, download the ebook, and use it to save 30% on your credit card processing, regardless or without switching providers. The second step is we have a do-it-yourself program. It's basically a 45-minute video, and it goes in detail, step by step, on what type of terminals are non-compliant, what type of terminals are older and you need to replace, where you can get a new terminal, what type of terminal you can buy. It goes into different steps on processes, different steps on training employees. So it goes into a lot more detail. It's only $29.95, and it comes with a guarantee. And the third one is the do it for me service. Basically, with the do it for me service, it's 100. Is that right? Yeah, actually, we do have a special for 150 right now. So it's 150, and I'll get into that in just a minute. And with that service, basically, we do all the work for you. So we provide you with the quotes, we provide you with the scripts, everything you need to call your current processor and get your rates lowered by 30%. And we're so confident with the do it for me service. Well, with all of our service that we offer a risk free guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied, we'll give you your money back, and that's up to 90 days. Um, with the do it for me service, we're so confident that we can make sure that we can save you at least $500. That if we can't save you or show you how to save $500, that we'll give you your money back. So for an investment of 150, you're guaranteed to save $500. So it's a great way for you to invest a small amount of money to save a larger amount of money. Worst case scenario is you don't have to spend anything, get free information. Okay, so don't take my word for it. Here's a couple of testimonials from a couple customers. One is from Mike McGowan over at MSC Duct and Air Cleaning. And we worked with Mike. We showed him how to change his process. And in doing so, we showed him how to save a little over $200 a month. And that was just the process, not the rates. We also worked with Kristen Yandor at Forgotten Harvest. And working with her, we showed her how to automate some of her systems because they get donations every month so that they saved hours and hours of time and money, and it was enough to feed 3,600 more people. So it was a really neat way that we could help them kind of change their business. All right, so here's where I was talking about. Our actual normal rate is $300 for the Do It For Me service. And for the first 5 people that actually email me right now to sign up, and again, there's no commitment, you can act now and you can get it for half off. All you have to do is email me, and with that email, my email is right on the bottom of the screen. The first 5 people, if any information you want, and if you decide not to go with it, that's fine. I understand. But by email me with the first 5 people, you actually will get that discount if you do decide to go with the service. All right, so with that, let's see if we have any questions. I'm looking through here. We've got tons of people signed in, tons of people listening, and no questions. Everybody's silent. So I'll fill in the silence and see if we get anything to come in here. Um, if you have any more questions, you can, after the fact, also email me. My email is on the screen on the bottom. You can also see this webinar on the website, which is getmoreprofits.biz, or you can go to jaredsparr.com and sign up for our newsletter there. Um, all right. I am not seeing any questions yet. So what I would like to do is I'm going to pick through here just randomly one person who's called in and say, I would like to offer you a free do it for me service. So $150, no charge at all. I'm going to do it for you for free. And that winner is Brian Cornwall. So Brian, please email me. Email's on the screen, jared@jaredsparr.com, and set it up. And I'll give you that service for free. All right, looks like I still don't have any questions, so I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. Just thank you very, very much for attending. I appreciate your time and patience with me. Please visit my website for, at the very least, the free ebook. All you have to do is sign in, and you can download it for free, and it's at www.howtoimproveprofits.biz. All right, thank you guys so much for your time, and just remember, make each day profitable. Thanks.